seen in the film up on the glacier, there are certainly hazards in the hills. And just why are there mountaineering accidents? Because as we all know, every so often during the summer or spring months, accidents seem to appear in the newspapers. And sometimes they kind of pile up, and I'm sure that mountaineering is criticized for these accidents like any sport would be. Well, first of all, I think that we could say that there's very definitely a lack of knowledge by the people out on certain trips. There may be people out there that don't know these particular techniques. They have an actual lack of knowledge in the mountaineering techniques that are needed. In the case of the film we just saw, the people there did not have any knowledge that they should be roped out on the glacier. Another thing would be the physical limitations of the party. Perhaps there are some people in the party that are over their head. They just are not capable of this type of physical activity at the level on which it's being carried on. That could be a factor too. Another, and perhaps very important, are psychological factors. That is, it can't happen to me type of attitude. It may be a little dangerous, but we want to get to the summit anyway. This type of attitude is certainly very poor. I think that one of the things about the training of a mountaineer is that he has a period of time of climbing, 4 or 5 years certainly, to become experienced, and he develops these attitudes about mountaineering that he's not going to stick his neck out too far the first 5 or 10 years. If he can live past those first 5 or 10 years, the chances of living a long time are much better. As you will note that a great number of the mountaineering accidents are those climbers with less than 5 or 6 years experience. You just kind of watch that. That is a very important factor. So maybe the idea is to climb 1 year and stay out for the next 4 and then come back. Another thing would be the actual mountain environment itself. You're way back in the hills. What may be a minor accident in a city or in a area near people may be very serious on back where a great number of people have to come back and perform a rescue operation. Heck, it may take a day or 2 days or more to get a rescue party into the scene. Take a case of an avalanche situation. It may take 8 or 10 hours to get a party in to search for someone. And just how long can a person live covered with snow? Perhaps 8 or 10 hours, perhaps 8 or 10 minutes. It depends on each individual situation, certainly. So all these are important. Let's take a little closer look at some of the actual underlying mountain hazards, aside from the underlying ones, the actual hazards in the hills themselves. If we just look at any mountaineering scene, say a high alpine valley surrounded by little peaks and gendarmes, a typical little alpine area that we might be climbing in, the hazards are probably number in the hundreds. Let's just mention a few. We have seen in the film certainly the glacier incident where being out on the glacier without a rope on was a definite hazard. And even down below at the snout of the glacier there may be hazards in falling rock along the moraines. Along ravines, this can be very dangerous too. Stay out of ravine areas. There have been any number of accidents, people falling or slipping into ravines and deep gullies. Up higher on higher snow fields above the glacier, there may be problems and very steep snow cliffs and snowbanks. Then you get up on climbing on a face, there may be danger of rock falling. Climbing along the ridge, there may be dangers also. There may be dangers with lightning or weather. All these things are important. And it's these years and years of experience in the hills that gives one a background in these various experiences. A fellow can know a lot of these techniques in a year or two. That's not the point. The fact is, it takes maybe 5 or 6 years to actually have enough time to experience all these things, experience these different conditions. And even then, no one is immune to mountaineering accidents. Anyone going up in the mountains certainly is facing certain mountain hazards. So it's particularly important for young mountaineers to be aware of these various problems and be aware of the fact that those first 5 or 6 years up in the high alpine country are by far the more dangerous. And so this kind of leads us into, well, what can you do about it? Hazards such as we've seen. A couple of more we probably should mention. One that's quite common is the hazard of cornices. Climbing along a ridge, you want to stay well back of the cornice line. Without actually studying something like this or having experience with it, just how would you ever know that this was a problem? So many people, if they got themselves up in this situation of walking along a ridge, might well walk out in here where it appeared they were directly over the solid rock below, and it was just a gentle slope leading off perhaps. But we look at the technical aspects of this, and something an experienced mountaineer might know is that the fracture point for a cornice falling is way back of the line that is directly over the rock itself. The cornice may peel back a long distance here. That's one of the things you just don't know until you've climbed for years or you've spent a lot of time studying these things. Chances are that in studying those things, it took many years to do that. Let's see how we can minimize then hazards in the mountains. Hazards such as this one we see, a crevasse covered with snow, it's all void down below. Would you walk over this or not? Is it safe? What would an experienced mountaineer do in a case like this? These are many of the problems. Well, to minimize mountaineering hazards, I think you must start at the source of the problem. That is to develop an education, to become educated in the various techniques, and then knowing the techniques, spending quite a while in easy climbs, and just kind of getting back into the back country and climbing things that are well within your capabilities. In other words, don't stick your neck out just because you happen to have had a couple of courses or a year or two in practicing. It's important to go on and become even more experienced. Because during this education period, you want to develop three things in any mountaineer. You want to develop his attitudes, you want to develop the skills to participate in the sport, and to provide experiences over this time. And experiences take years to get under your belt. And besides then the basic education which might be needed, you need to practice safe mountaineering techniques. And just what are safe mountaineering techniques? Well, there is the climbing code, which so many clubs have, and have their young mountaineers read and sign and learn. And that is, you always have a minimum party of 4 up in the hills. That is, 1 to stay with a victim that might be hurt, and 2 to go out for anyone bring in help. Another thing is to plan a mountain trip. Know who's in your party, plan that you have enough equipment, plan where you're going, plan to leave the schedule with someone. All those things are important. Very important to leave the trip schedule at home so that when you're up in the hills, your folks or your sister or wife know where you are and check in at the ranger station and check out. Another thing would be well equipped and have the equipment to participate in the activity that you're doing that particular day. Another thing would be to, on a glacier, as we've seen this evening, always rope up. You never go out on a glacier unless you've got a rope on it. It just is not safe. And you don't go out there and start looking for crevasses and then rope up. You rope up, then you walk on out. But you don't step on a glacier until you're roped up. Another thing would be to practice good mountaineering technique all the way through. Be sure that everyone knows the techniques, and then practice what you've been doing in your practice sessions too. Avoid bad weather is very important too. All these things kind of lead to a climbing code, and it's important to follow this climbing code if you plan on doing very much mountaineering, as you hope to go on and be able to climb for years to come. Another thing you should do is always have the various essentials with you, the 10 essentials. Let's see what those 10 essentials are again. We've mentioned them before in the course. Let's spend a little more time with them. Perhaps one of the most important things, that everyone in the party has a small little first aid kit. It isn't one little first aid kit that's going to necessarily fix up a course or fix up a person that's hurt, but it's a combination of a number of first aid kits. And then it's important, I think, everyone has a knife so that you can not only open cans with it and do other things, but you can have it for getting dry wood or cutting ropes, things like that. And also important to have a compass with you. As we've seen before in the sessions, have a compass, know how to use it, and use it often so you become more experienced in using it. And also, if you're going to have a compass, of course, you want to have a map of the area you're in and have looked at it before so that you have an idea where you're going or where you've been, know a little bit more about the terrain. And dry matches, too, because if you're going to be in here a while, maybe there's a chance of being benighted overnight. Maybe you'll be in here longer than you expected. You may have to start a fire even though you didn't anticipate it. So matches are extremely important and on the list of 10 essentials. Let's see what else there is. Fire starters. Oh, yes, fire starters. So often in the high country, it's easy to get a fire started, but you get down to big timber, and it can be quite a problem. And so a lot of mountaineers bring along a little candle or a fire starter like this, and you can get a fire going quite easily. These, you can light a match to them, and they'll get a little fire going for you. So that's a good idea, too. And a flashlight with new batteries in it. Always new batteries. And when you're not using it, you can reverse the batteries inside so that you can, it won't go on when you're not looking at it. Sun cream, particularly out on the glacier areas, so that you won't get too burned. And sunglasses, and perhaps an extra pair too, so that everyone in the party, you make sure will have one. And extra clothing and extra food out on the trip also is most important. These things then, the 10 essentials. So you'd always have these 10 essentials when you're out on a trip. And also important to leave a margin of safety on a trip. When you get back out, have enough time. Don't cut yourself so short you're going to get back to the car after dark. Get back down off your trips. Leave a margin of safety for yourself. You might wonder, what can I do then? How can I learn more about mountaineering? Well, certainly one thing is to try and get in contact with some mountaineering club or some organization that could give you some training. And I think one of the big organizations is probably the American Alpine Club in New York. And the American Alpine Club in New York could provide assistance in finding out the names of mountaineering clubs in your region. So this would be most important then. So with that then, I think that you might have a little better idea what to do in the way of training, what to do in the way of finding out more information regarding clubs or organizations in your area. I'm sure the American Alpine Club could be of some help. Well, I think that about winds us up for this evening, and we hope that next session you'll be with us for a climb with the group up one of the peaks in the Cascade Mountains. Thank you for being with us this evening.
We invite you to be with us for our next lesson on alpine hiking and basic mountaineering next week. Our instructor for these lessons is Dick McGowan, well-known Pacific Northwest guide and mountaineer. This series is produced by KCTS-TV through the cooperation of the Rainier Guide Service and Mountaineering School.